Aloha. I'm jumping on here really quickly. I'm gonna do my best to keep this pithy. To scale up the activity of pathogens. It seems to me that a lot of folks have a misunderstanding about how pathogens operate, microbes, simply because they can't see them. They can't see them. Well, that's okay. Just because you can't see something doesn't mean you can't understand it using basic observations of the things that you can see. So let me expand on this a little bit. Pathogens are going to be the critters, microbes, fungus, mold, viruses, bacteria that we consider to be harmful, because then you have the other half of the microbes that we consider to be beneficial. We have probiotics and things like that. There is good fungus, because I fucking love portobello mushrooms, chaga mushrooms, reishi mushrooms, etc., etc. So, naturally we have classification. We have pathogens of microbes, and then we have beneficial microbes. So let's not go any further in that, because I think I've explained it well enough. So how do pathogens work? Not all of us have microscopes. I certainly don't have a microscope to understand how they operate in the world. But what I do have is I have a general understanding of how other creatures in the world work, right? As above, so below. If it's working on this level, it's going to be working on this other level in a similar manner. So let's take wolves, for example. Obviously, we don't consider wolves to be pathogens, but if you're a rancher and you have a bunch of cows, you might consider wolves to be harmful, because they're going to go after your cows or your sheep or your goats or whatever. So in this instance, the wolves, we're going to compare them to the pathogens, the bacteria, the viruses, the mold, the fungus. We're going to equate the wolves to these things, these negative microbes. The wolves are only going to go where there's food. And if the wolves see the sheep or the goats or the chickens, they're going to want to go after that. They're going to eat. They're going to feed. They're going to proliferate in places where there's food. And that's why we humans have bred sheepdogs, cattle dogs, guard dogs, right? So you could say that your immune system is like your guard dogs on your farm. Your body could be your farm. And it's not the most perfect example, but we're going to go with it anyway. Your body is your farm. You have things in your body that the wolves can eat, that you can also eat. Cows, for example, and your guard dogs are your immune system. Now here's the thing. Do the wolves come to your farm and raid your farm for things like this? This is an orange, obviously. And this happens to be a glass of celery juice. The cows, the chickens, the pigs, the sheep, the goats, they can all be food for me, or they can be food for the wolves. These other things can be food for me, but they're not going to be food for the wolves. Depending on the food that's in my body on my farm, that will depend on, or that will result in whether or not the wolves are going to come and try to eat the food, which will, if they're killing my sheep or my goats and my chickens and I don't have the right kinds of, like I'm having all these problems, you could say that that is disease. And so by substituting the foods that we intake for the foods that the pathogens don't want, that will greatly reduce how many pathogens can come into the body and ravage the body. Now there's a whole nother side of this, and it's really gonna shift things up a little bit. We're not gonna look at the wolf anymore. But again, we have a farm, that's the body, and now we're not talking about the food that we actually intake, because there's more ways that pathogens can come in. It's not just the food that we choose to intake. It can also be the way that we maintain our farm itself, okay? So let's say you've got your farm and you're eating your fruits and your veggies, and so the wolves aren't coming. You don't have any livestock. There's no wolves coming. You're not getting disease in that manner. But if you're not taking care of your farm in the sense that you have pools of standing water, or you have waste products like oil from your tractor just sitting, and you've got plastic from, like I like to buy coconuts. My coconuts happen to be fully wrapped in plastic because they're imported from Southeast Asia. You've got piles of plastic in the corner. You've got buckets of tubs of pesticides and insecticides and chemical fertilizer in order to grow your oranges and your celery. These other things, these waste products, these leftover things can also attract pathogens. I'm specifically referring to petroleum-based products and the plastics inside the physical body. On a farm, I'm going to go back to the whole idea of the standing water. The standing water, or just leaving trash. Even if you put compost in the wrong places, it's going to attract the bugs. You know, standing water is going to attract mosquitoes. If mosquitoes didn't carry malaria, they probably wouldn't be that big of a deal, but they're definitely unpleasant regardless. If you live in a malaria-free area, you still don't really want to have mosquitoes, because you know that having standing water can also mean a lot of other things. It goes into the mold and the pathogens again, but let's stay out of that because this is the comparison. Standing water will also cause, it depends on where is the standing water. It can really mess with the soil if you have, why you would do this, but if you had standing water underneath the foundation of your home, eventually it will cause rotting and the actual house could fall apart. Same thing with other harsh chemicals. If you accidentally spilled some muriatic acid and didn't care, it could once again get into the foundation of your home. If you're choosing not to be diligent about your table scraps and you're leaving all of your orange peels and leftover products from your foods, if you're just throwing them again underneath the house instead of putting them away properly in a nice composting pile, It can attract cockroaches and other insects that will potentially eat away at your home. So this is how it works on the macro scale. Of course, it's going to work on the micro scale. As above, so below. So what's the most important thing to understand when dealing with sickness, illness, and disease? One, eat the things that don't attract the pathogens. Two, take care of your body in a way that will make sure that you go and clean out these other toxins that can build up. Standing water, make sure you're drinking clean water. Why am I saying that one? Because tap water, there's a sink right next to me. Tap water is full of all sorts of things that don't belong in the body. And those things, the body has no idea what these things are, and it's not very good at cleaning them out on its own. And so we need extra help. Our bodies need extra help at keeping themselves clean, because in this modern age, we are faced with so many things that we have not been spending millennia evolving in order to be prepared for. How long have we been burning gasoline in our cars? Not that long. Henry Ford mass-produced the cars in the 1800s, and boom, now we've all got cars, and now we're all pumping our own gas. A few decades ago, we were not pumping our own gas. So there were limited people who got heavy exposure to these gasoline fumes, and now everybody gets it. But because everybody's got it, everybody's got a standing pool of water on their farm, everybody's got mosquitoes in a land that shouldn't have mosquitoes. But since everybody's had it, and their parents and their parents' parents, they've all had this standing pool of water attracting mosquitoes. Now everyone's used to these mosquitoes, and they don't realize that they could all have nice farms, mosquito-free, if they just drained these pools of standing water underneath the foundation of their homes. So I'm trying to keep it pithy, so that's all I got for you today. I hope you enjoyed it, and you're welcome to ask questions, but just a simple, relatively simple analogy as to how pathogens work and how the body works, and a broad overview of what we need to do in order to take care of ourselves. Mahalo.